Hello, I am so excited to be going live here in just a minute with my friend AnnMarie to talk about combat trauma, which is not necessarily something we usually want to talk about, but it is a reality. So AnnMarie is a great resource because she herself is a veteran, and she also is married to a veteran, and they both struggle with combat trauma. Okay, I'm trying to get AnnMarie on here. Let's see, accept. There we go. Hopefully she will pop up soon. AnnMarie, you should have gotten an invite. I'm trying to do it and it's not adding you. Let's see. AnnMarie, did you make sure that you had your camera allowed to access Instagram? So you might want to check that. I keep sending you invites. So do me a favor and check your Instagram. Oh, wait, I see you popping up. Yes, yes, it worked.
There you go. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes,
okay.
You're great.
Now I'm trying to just make sure I can. Okay, there we go. Oh, okay. Yay,
Good.
I can see you.
Yes. Hi, Casey. It's good to see you join. So, AnnMarie, I just told everybody a little bit about you, but I'm going to briefly do it again because you didn't get to hear it.
No.
So this is my friend AnnMarie Ash, and AnnMarie and I met because we both do ministry to the military. And this week on my Instagram Live, I'm talking about combat trauma, which is not necessarily something we want to talk about, but it's a reality of many of our veterans and our people still serving. So I feel like AnnMarie is one of the most knowledgeable people I know about this because she deals with it, and so does her husband. So AnnMarie is a 23-year Army veteran herself. She did 3 tours to deployed in Iraq, and her husband David deployed twice to Iraq. And AnnMarie, thank you so much for coming on. Did you want to say anything else about you?
Thank you, Beth, for having me. No, I'm excited to be here. Yeah, I think that was a great introduction, and it is exactly what you said. It's not the kind of thing we would voluntarily want to walk ourselves into, but as you've learned with me, and as I've definitely learned over the years, God for sure had this in my path. I mean, my father was a Vietnam vet, my grandfather was a World War II vet, and I was always fascinated with war and what makes people tick. And then obviously, a lot of the rest of the story, what we walk through when we go to war and then come home and face some of the struggles. So
yes,
I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Good. Well, thanks for agreeing to do this. You have so much to add to this topic. I can say for myself, my husband's 25 years of serving, he did not have combat trauma, but since we've been serving together in ministry, we've led some courses to help veterans work towards healing in this area, and I just recognize how much of a reality it is for most military marriages. And I saw through the ministry, that Crew Military, the ministry that I work with, that they partner with, there is hope, and people are not being told a lot about the hope that is available. There's a lot of programs through the VA, which I've heard mixed reviews about getting healing. And I have seen healing happen in all of the 10 couples that were involved in our course, and really miraculous healing. So I just wanted to talk about it. Again, it's a difficult topic, but I want to talk about it because I know there's a lot of people out there that are facing this. So I know that AnnMarie and I could probably talk for 3 hours, but we recognize that everybody else might not want to listen to us talk for 3 hours. So I picked 3 questions that I wanted AnnMarie to try to address. I can say, if you have follow-up questions, you want me to get you in touch with AnnMarie, or you want me to get in touch with other people involved in our ministry, that help with combat trauma healing, please message me. I would love to resource you and point you in the right places. And if I don't know the answer right away, I have enough contacts that I can look for the answers. So we are just going to touch on this and kind of whet your appetite, but there is more help and hope available. So first of all, AnnMarie, both AnnMarie and I serve with Cru Military, which is a division of Campus Crusade for Christ. And one of the areas of ministry that we work in is combat trauma. And we do have some of our own resources that we offer courses in. But probably the most common thing that we're doing right now is we are working with a ministry called REBOOT. And they have a program called REBOOT Military. And it is a combat trauma healing. And we use their curriculum in 12-week courses that we invite the veteran or the warrior and their spouse to come to. But AnnMarie has been a participant and she's led those courses. So AnnMarie, is there anything else you could briefly use to describe about what happens in a REBOOT course?
Yeah, that's a great question, Beth. And yes, so the REBOOT course, like you mentioned, is a 12-week Christ-centered trauma recovery course.
Yes.
And I know you know this, but for those of your listeners, the reason that we even use the word course as opposed to support group or anything else is because it truly is a course. Not that we're not giving support, not that we're not there to support each other. Is that making noise on your end? Is it
No,
beeping?
you're good.
Okay.
You're good.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, not that we're not there to support each other, because we certainly are, but unlike other things that may be a support group style, it's not, it's a lot more structured. So there's a structural plan of how we're going to approach trauma and walk through with someone into healing. So I think that's really key to recognize, is that it's not just to come together and we're all going to vent or complain or just put all our information out there. There's a lot more, and that can happen. You know that we can talk and we can support, but there's a lot more structure to it, of how we want to walk folks through in understanding and then learning to walk through the healing.
Great.
One other thing maybe to say is peer led. So different than a clinical type course or support group. Again, it's led by other veterans, active duty military, their spouses, and sometimes often people that truly just feel called, who may have never served, but have a unique calling to serve in a military community capacity.
Yes. And it is, there are short videos each week, and there is discussion, and that's being led by people more likely than not who have trauma themselves.
Exactly.
And
that's go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, and that's the thing. There's courses being run cross country and in several countries around the world now. And one of the blessings that came out of COVID is there are courses still being run in person in churches or in facilities across the nation, but now also virtually. I mean, and personally, that's really how David and I had expanded doing PTSD ministry, was getting involved with REBOOT and being able to host and lead virtual courses through Zoom.
Yeah. And so if Cru Military isn't offering an in-person course where you happen to be, or REBOOT, the ministry that we partner with, we can connect you with a virtual program. In fact, we've even had people that, someone is on deployment, and, the spouse is stateside. And one of the unique things about this course is we bring the spouse and the warrior together, because secondary PTSD is pretty common, and often they will exhibit some of the same symptoms. And the biggest thing that I saw in the course that we were a part of is that the spouses didn't really have anyone they could talk to about the difficulties they were going through, because people that aren't facing it just don't understand. Right. And so they got a support system as well. And in our group, the women, all the spouses were women. That isn't always the situation. Like, I know it's not in yours, AnnMarie, but we met outside of the normal group for the women to build relationships. And then the warriors as well met outside. And then there's also meetups that happen with your leader. So there is a lot of resources to help you move towards healing.
And I love that you said that too, the other opportunities, because just like all of us know, the course can be as big or as small as you
Yeah.
want. So the more you put into it, the more you'll get out of it. The more you put into building the relationships with others, the more you will definitely get out of it. And we definitely have observed, I mean, each course is very unique in the sense of it could be a strong, highly veteran group, it could be a lot of active duty, or it could literally be a whole group that's majority based with spouses or sometimes even parents. I've done a lot with parents of military whose children, oftentimes sons, come home with PTSD.
Mm-hmm.
So just doing that. In our current course, it's literally the majority of it is actually widows of veterans who had PTSD. So it's
Oh,
a different,
wow.
unique environment
So
this
interesting.
time.
I wasn't aware of that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and our course that we did had Navy, Army, Air Force, Marine. So it really was. And it was, we also had a guy who he had served a few years in the Air Force, but then he had been a undercover cop. And all their experiences were very similar. Even though their trauma had been slightly different. And that's one of the things I realized in the courses too, is that we had some spouses who did not have combat trauma, but they had other trauma
Yeah.
and found that there was hope and healing for them in this group as well.
Exactly. And I love how the curriculum, some of the language will talk about military experience, and some of the acronyms maybe will often allude to the different branches or things that kind of make sense to us as soldiers or as service
Yeah,
members. But it definitely is not excluding, it actually is including everyone who's taking it to dig in and examine themselves.
great.
So I could look at it for myself as a soldier and what did I get hurt? Where were my traumas from the military, but where are also my traumas as a spouse or in a family? And it's all inclusive in that.
Great. That's so good to add. Thank you. Okay, AnnMarie, so this is a hard question, but I know both you and David had PTSD. Um, why do you think you and David have gotten more healing through Reboot than some of the previous programs that you tried?
It is a great question, Beth. And you kind of also have alluded to that at the beginning when you mentioned the VA or some other secular type resources. I came home from my third tour in Iraq in 2009, and I had been saved in the desert. I knew God was working on me and was trying to open up some things, but didn't understand it all. So I spent a lot of time with Army chaplains, even in those last couple of years that I was in the military, and sought out things like
Mhm.
this. And even I know you still are serving around a lot of active duty or future officers as well. And in the past decade, we've seen a lot of improvements, but the military, the VA, many of the secular agencies have often talked about healing the whole person, right? And that we need to heal physically, we need to heal mentally, we need to heal emotionally, and we need to heal spiritually. But most of those were never touching on that spiritual aspect. So even in many of the other courses that we did, we were never really digging to the roots of the way that this curriculum helps us walk through recognizing that truth. That if we go to a doctor for our physical injuries and we go to a psychiatrist or psychologist for our mental struggles or illnesses, then who are we supposed to go to for our soul wounds? Who are we supposed to go to for the person who created us that would understand how to heal the wounds that have been done to our soul. So Reboot definitely does an excellent job of helping us walk through that. So that was kind of a twofold answer. So there's the depth of it, the uniqueness to it, but also the fact that it's expansive enough, but it's also still narrow enough in that the Holy Spirit is leading. So
Mhm.
it gives us the opportunity and the timing to not say someone has to heal or do certain steps at a certain time. It's literally, that's again why it's a course. It's helping us understand it and open it up to be able to heal in his time, if that makes sense.
No, that's great. And I love that you mentioned the soul wound, because that was one of the key things that really stuck out for me from the course that we were a part of, right? Did you recognize that there is a soul wound? Even if you don't think you believe in a higher power, there's a soul wound. And I would encourage you that if you or your spouse are dealing with this, um, give it a try.
Yes.
What do you have to lose?
Exactly.
Um, give it a try and see. And I truly believe there is a supernatural power that comes in Reboot when we recognize that there is this hole in our soul. Um, and honestly, that it really grieved God what you saw,
Mhm.
but that He, in His supernatural ability through the Holy Spirit, can bring about healing.
Right.
And my class, the majority of the people had tried numerous things to get healing, um, and most of them recognized that they considered self-harm on an almost daily basis. And so it was just amazing to really see miracles happen. Marriages who they came into the course saying, there is no hope for us,
Hmm.
and are happily married to this day. Now, I think a lot of times that the healing, we do have to work on other aspects of our wounds, but I think this is the most commonly neglected. I also think counseling is really important, right? I think traumatic brain injuries are a big part usually of combat trauma, maybe not always, but it seems to be, um, they tend to go hand in hand at times, or can at least. So yeah, I really appreciate you explaining that, and like certainly you can explain that better than me.
Well, no,
Um,
that was perfect too, Beth. And I kind of had it in almost a twofold answer for this one in particular. And I think you and I have talked about it before. One, we know, I mean, David and I both individually and then together know that God redeemed us and walked us through so much trauma in order to truly have that compassion and have that understanding to be able to relate to others, and help turn others to healing through Him as well. But the second part of it, and I know you know this in ministry as well, is we know we have to stay in that mindset of recovery. We know we have to stay in that growth mindset of it's our calling now, but also to stay in it for that continual growth and continual healing. And that may not be the answer for everyone after the course, but the course definitely helps people find a new purpose or renewed purpose.
mhm.
And that may go into your next question, but in that way alone provides hope that there is something else, even if you can't continue to do the thing you did in the military or in a certain setting, that there is hope. So yes, definitely um, giving us that purpose. And then, like you said, just seeing God work. I mean, work miracles in families and individuals and in marriages. That's what keeps us going in it for sure.
Right. And one of the things that I saw is that it's so common to try to dull the pain of PTSD and other invisible wounds of war, right? With um, unfortunately addictions, drugs, alcohol, video game addiction, just kind of withdraw from a lot of things because the pain, I don't want to deal with the pain, and I don't really know how to deal with the pain. And so that was really neat to see that there is hope. You can deal with the pain. You don't have to just live this dulled life. And I think part of what the course does is acknowledge that there is this wound.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And I know we're really just barely hitting the surface
Yes.
of it, but to just give that visual, and I don't know if you've worked through with the new curriculum as well, but
No.
what we really look at a lot in the Reboot program from the beginning is looking at the soul wounds and the roots. Looking
Yes.
at the roots of the different hurts and all, I mean, things like betrayal or loss or guilt or grief, and we can't even hit on all of them, abuse, those things that are rooted down in us, in our hearts and in our souls at that point. And the whole process after recognizing that is to then take that disorder that the enemy has caused and that trauma has caused and help heal all that, clean out those rotten roots and replace them with all of God's truth,
Oh, I
and,
love
and to
that.
end up with a healthy, thriving, living soul at that point.
Yeah. And here's the thing, there's hope, not only for you, but that God could actually use this for you to help others. All
Amen.
right. So I wanted to close out with, what would you tell a military spouse or member who
Mhm.
lacks hope that this program can offer healing? They've tried VA, they've tried all the medication, they've been to different counselors. What would you tell them? Why should they give this a try?
Well, first and foremost, Beth, I mean, say you are not alone. You know, first and foremost, God is with you in the midst of your pain. He doesn't want you to endure this pain. He didn't want you to endure it, like you've already mentioned. And you are not alone. He is there with you, but also there's a community there for you. There's a community of other veterans, other spouses, other family members who have walked through and understand the same things you're going through. There is no judgment. There is should be no shame coming into a reboot course. And we like to say, what hurt you, and I can never take that away. And what hurt me, and you can't take that away. So everyone's trauma, everyone's wounds are equal in the sense of you will be accepted, you'll be heard, and you definitely can find healing. You don't need to stay trapped, like you said, in the pit of the trauma and in the pit of the things that the enemy has tried to force you into. God is there. Others are there for you to help you walk through this. That would be the biggest thing.
Great. Well, and I'd say too, if you're skeptical, I would encourage you, give it 2 meetings. Just give it 2 meetings. And this is free. It doesn't cost you anything.
Yeah.
You're going to get free childcare. You're going to get free meals. Obviously, when it's in person, we can't do free childcare and meals if you're doing virtual, right? But if it's in person, it is. And community is such an important component of this healing. You know, we don't see a lot of PTSD prior to the Vietnam War. And I think that's because people were processing the healing as they traveled on the boats on the way back for a few months. That doesn't happen now with the advent of airfare. We're going straight from the battlefield back home, and we haven't processed and we haven't allowed God to do the healing. So, AnnMarie, thank you so much for agreeing to have this little chat with me. It's hard to stop because I could continue chatting with you, but I just really feel like, guys, there is hope. If you know someone who's dealing with this, maybe it's a friend, a neighbor, a niece, a nephew, a grandchild, there is hope, and we want to point you to that hope. We're only doing this because we love you, we care about you, we care about veterans, and we want them to be whole. Any closing thoughts, AnnMarie?
No, I think you really hit it. And just like you said, if anybody needs to reach out within a group or even one-on-one prior to surrendering to start a group, or to attend a group. Yeah, there you go.
Thank you so much, AnnMarie. I really appreciate it. This was great. Okay, have a great day.